Hey folks, I just wanted to have a discussion about my thoughts on survival knives, what I look for and I'm still currently looking for in a, perfect survival knife. I feel like there's still lacking options out there. I feel like there still could be something better. In the future, maybe I'll design one and get one made for myself by a custom knife maker. I don't really know. But I think I'm not the only one that feels this way, and I'm going to talk about all these kind of knives, why you might want them for survival, why you might not, what I look for, and what I like in a survival knife. So, way back in the day, I started out with this Knives by Hand Frank Bowie. Basically, I was doing geology work in remote areas. We'd get helicoptered in, and we'd be there for the day hiking around and get picked up at the end of the day most of the time. There was a couple times where we kind of got stuck out there. So I brought this as I was thinking it was going to be used for chopping small trees down, stuff like that. But it's just a little bit too hefty to be kind of swift enough to do anything nimble. So like I could cut a big tree down with this and it would take longer. I had an axe with me too, so I just ended up using the axe a lot. I had this strapped on my leg with this holster here, and I had a little attachment here, so it was like a drop leg holster. It's really nice holster, or a really nice sheath. But yeah, it is a nice knife, but it's like a centimeter thick at least in the spine. It's a big, thick, honkin' chunk of steel. Now it's kind of been retired a little bit. I use it when we go camping to like chop kindling and firewood and stuff. But that's about it. It's a little bit basic. The handle's basic. The handle could be a little longer, I think, to make more use of it. And I just think the blade shape's not ideal. I don't think it's thought out, but I think there should be, if you're going to make this as a big chopper, I think the mash should be a little bit more forward. More like a Tops SXB. I think that's kind of like a really good big honkin' chopper if that's what you're looking for. But this thing's useless for fine tasks. Like, it's basically about as sharp as an axe gets, which can be pretty sharp, but not crazy sharp like a thinner knife would be able to get. Alright, so let's go to the Tops Tahoma. This would probably be like my number one survival knife currently. It's a good design. I don't think it's a great design, but it's not perfect. I still think it's great. Andy Tran did a good job designing this. I think this secondary blade grind up here is a mistake. It makes it really thin up there. I mean, like, this has been dulled by the first owner of this knife. I'm not the first owner, which is good. I would have done the same thing, to be honest with you. But the problem is if I want to baton in a normal fashion, this just destroys the baton stick like immediately. And batoning the way Andy Tran intends this to, where you put this part of the blade and you baton back here, it just doesn't work that well. I find the knife gets stuck in the logs a lot and stuff, more so than if I just baton normally. So I'm not a huge fan of that. I couldn't really care too much about this, but like, technically that would make the blade slightly weaker in that spot, but I've never heard of one actually breaking, so I'm sure it's fine. And it's a weird, funny looking knife. It doesn't give you like the tinglies where you're like, oh yeah, that's a sexy knife. I think it looks kind of neat, but it's not that great. It's pretty comfortable to hold, but not perfect. I think this choil is almost too deep, and I think that makes it a little bit less comfortable for me. But I find the handle very comfortable, even though it's kind of blocky. So I think it's a really good knife, and I've got I think it's Red Fox made, or Red Wolf or something. Some company made these Kydex sheaths with these. So I've got that, and it's perfect for drop leg. Drop leg holsters are the way to go, because you can access your knife really quickly, and it just feels like it's part of you, part of your body when you're wearing it. Alright, so this is my current kind of survival knife. That's probably my favorite at the moment. I kind of going between the Tahoma and this longhorn bowie. I haven't taken out the longhorn bowie much at all yet, but it does all the things I would like it to do very well. It's a beautiful knife, so it gives you that tingly feeling, which is nice. And it's a good size. It's got I think just under a 7-inch blade, 6 3/4 inch, I think. And you got a little choil here, and I like this shallow choil. It's much more comfortable than the deep choil on the Tahoma. I can't explain why, but it just is. This handle design is absolutely perfect. I don't know if I'd ever design a handle another way. It's really comfortable. The way it's slightly curved helps with chopping, and it's just very, very comfortable in your hand. And you got those 3 positions, so coming up for doing what you call fine tasks, which for me basically just means feather sticking a lot of the time. You can come down for just a regular grip on it, and you can come way down for a chopping grip, which is great. So that's a really good survival knife. I really like this, and I like how it's got thick stock on it. It's a 1/4 inch thick, and it's ground in a nice way. I can't remember what the name for it is. Saber grind, maybe, or flat grind. I think it's a full flat grind. I just recently bought this SE6. It's okay. I think it's good for I think it's a really good lightweight survival knife. So this thing's really light compared to all my other knives, because it's smaller and thinner and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's a really good lightweight survival knife that you can take with you. Be good for hunting larger game. You can still get in close with it, and it's got another shallow choil, which is very comfortable for me. I find it very comfortable to hold this knife like this. It just feels really light. So chopping, it's got a grip for chopping, but I mean, like, you're going to be just like clearing small branches off stuff with that. You're not going to be doing anything crazy with it unless you're going to be batoning. You'd have to baton into this blade to cut a tree down or something. But I think it's still a very good survival blade. It's just not what I'm looking for ideally, so I'm probably going to end up selling this. I do like the lifetime warranty and like the no questions asked warranty that comes with these, but you do pay for it. I paid almost $300 for this. It's Canadian dollars, which is a bit up there. I was also supporting a local knife shop. I willingly paid about $50 more, $40 to $50 more than I would have if I bought it online. But it's nice to have a local knife shop. Try to support your local knife shop, because you can go in, actually pick up the blades, feel them, see if they work for you before you buy them. Because I find nowadays I have to buy these freaking knives online before I hold them, and then I have to, play with them a bit and then be like, no, this isn't for me, and then sell it, and it's a lot of work. So yeah, that's a good lightweight survival knife. And then, you can have like a hunting survival knife where, you've got something like this Work Tough Gear asset, where it's a 5-inch blade on it, and it's small enough that, you can use it as a hunting knife. It's nice and nimble, small, compact, or relatively compact compared to these other ones. And it'll get the job done. The only thing I don't like is just when you have a blade this short, it's hard to span wood when you're batoning. So you're not going to span anything more than about 3 inches with this knife realistically to do any easy batoning, but it does have a non-sharpened swedge for batoning and stuff. So you can do batoning. It's just going to be a bit more difficult, but I mean, in a survival situation, something that's could never happen to you. It's kind of, you could say it's kind of silly to bring a big knife that you may never actually need to use for survival, but I use my knife to make fires and stuff when I hike to the top of mountains and stuff like that, just to kind of have fun, and so I do use them quite a bit. So another reason I want a bigger knife is last line of defense against an animal. So ideally I've got a rifle and like bear spray, and if you're in the States you can carry a pistol. I can't carry a pistol legally where I am, but as a last line of defense, a large knife like this with a nice either drop point or clip point will penetrate quickly, and then you want that depth. You want to be able to get nice and deep in that animal. So if you can try to imagine like all the muscle and fat and hide and stuff you're getting through on like a grizzly bear or a cougar or whatever, the only like 2 or 3 inches of the blade tip might even reach their vital organs, and you want to try to reach as much of that as you can. And you can slash them up real good with it and that kind of stuff. So I think about these things. I've thought about these things a lot, especially when I was doing geology work. So that's why I bought, this big knife to begin with. But I mean, I don't know if it would be good against a wild animal. You can't move it very quickly. But yeah, something like this where you've got roughly a 7 to 8 inch blade, a nice long handle, so it allows you with different uses. You can come up nice and high, you can come up way low to do some chopping. That's a very, very useful blade. And at 7 inches, it's still good enough. I could use it to process an animal. 8 inches, I'd be getting up there, but you could use the tahoma to process an animal just because of this choil and the way he designed it, where you can kind of move up the blade and have one of your fingers in that choil, and you can do a little bit of finer work that way when you're cutting and stuff. Wouldn't be my first choice to process an animal. And a lot of the time I do bring a smaller blade with me. When I'm out in the wilderness, I'll have one of these bigger knives, and then something small and lightweight like my work tough gear Apache, which I actually don't have down here right now, but I've got this cold steel Pendleton mini hunter, which is actually one of my favorite knives. And it's just a nice small compact little, like, I think it's got a 2-inch blade on it or something, but it cuts really well. It does really good feather sticking. It's stainless steel. This is the San Mai version. It's got a nice big handle so you can get your full hand around it. So it's really good for all those smaller tasks, processing game, all that kind of stuff. Small game like rabbits too and things like that. So it's good to pair a larger survival type knife with something small like this. In my opinion, the thing basically weighs nothing, so it's not really much extra weight to bring with you, and you get a lot of bigger advantages with it. I mean, you can cut up food with it and stuff, and there's just a ton of things you can do with a small knife. Small knives are very, very useful. So I hope somebody got some use out of this video. I mean, you want a good survival knife that's not too small. I would say for a survival knife, I would want minimum 6-inch blade. I would prefer 7 to 8 inches. And unfortunately, a lot of people making survival knives, they're making them at around 6-inch blade length. And like, I get how it's kind of a little bit more wieldy and more compact and blah blah. I don't care about compactness. I carry my knives on my leg, drop leg. So it's actually a very comfortable way to carry, and you can carry a much bigger knife that way without it intruding on anything like your backpack straps or your just whatever. So yeah, I think I'm tempted to design my own knife. This Tops Longhorn bowie is super close. It's not quite perfect. It's so close though. It's very, very close. I think I'd prefer more of like I think this is called a saber grind, more of a saber grind knife, just for the strength. It's a little bit more, I don't know, it just seems a little bit more practical. I mean, this knife chops really well. It cuts through stuff really good. This one does pretty good too, but not quite as good as this one. And that's probably because this one has an extra like inch or so of length on it. But yeah, I really do think the ideal survival knife size for someone who's truly an outdoorsman and is going to be using it a lot, I think ideally you want something a little bigger, 7 to 8 inches, and there's just not a lot of options in that range. It's kind of disappointing. I'm kind of hoping people will come out with more stuff in the future. I did have a Work Tough Gear Puzon Wilderness Bowie 7, but for me the handle just was too thick. It was big and chunky like this, and it just didn't feel super good in my hand, so I ended up going with this Tops instead, and it's very, very comfortable in my hand. Yeah, I'm just kind of rambling at this point, so I'll probably end the video here, but I hope that helps somebody out. I'd be interested to hear what other people think about survival knives with their experience and what they want out of a knife. You know, everyone's going to have different opinions that are still valid. Just because I want a bigger knife doesn't mean, you know, that's a be-all, end-all, and every survival knife should be a bigger knife. It's just, it's what works for me. And I'd like to see more good options out there for those types of knives. And I'm curious to try one in the CPM 3V or something like that in the future. Maybe even Magna Cut. But 1095 is a pretty good steel for these kinds of things when you're beating on them a lot and stuff. Even 1075 is pretty good. And if you're not afraid to sharpen your knife, then it's not a big deal. So hopefully you got a use out of that video, and thanks for watching, folks.